Hi, and welcome to Faith Talks, a discussion program that discusses God, faith, and how that relates to life today. In this program, we'll be looking at men and health. Are men really interested in health? Is there such a thing as the man flu? With me in the studio today, I have Pastor Patrick Johnson, who is also a nurse, and Dr. Chidi Ngwaba, who is here as a medical doctor, and will discuss some of these things. Chidi, are men really interested in health?
Men are very interested in health. You wouldn't know it if you come to my practice. I mean, I would say for every 3 women I see 1 man. And many people tend to think, well, that's just because men aren't interested in health. They are very interested. It's just that it takes a little encouragement for them to come and open up about all the things that are going wrong with it. They'd rather not think about it, or if they can find someone that they really know and they can talk to, they'll talk to them about it, even before they come to their doctor. But they're definitely interested in their health. I mean, you know, they go to football matches all the time. Sport, they're always into sport. Maybe most of them are armchair supporters, but, you know, they're interested in health, definitely.
I was going to say a lot of men and guys are very into sport and are very avid supporters of whatever football and will ruffle up some muscles as well if their team is not winning. But isn't there much more armchair interest in health for men than actually participating in sports?
Well, yeah, that's because it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to sit down and watch people play than actually get out and do it. But, you know, there's a growing group of men who are actually getting out there, getting out to the gym, going out on the walks, getting interested in the things that are going on in their own bodies. We're not quite as good as the women, that's true, but we are definitely getting there.
Patrick, what do you feel? You know, you as a pastor, you know, that is a desk job, a quiet job. I mean, it's not necessarily a physical job. Are the men that you meet who don't come to the surgery, are they interested in health, do you think?
I think in general, yeah, we are. If I think about my own self, because I have such a desk job, I got to make sure that I do something physical just to drain the blood out of my brain for a little while and just, you know, feel like I'm alive a little bit. So yeah, I think men generally are interested, but we don't go around talking so much about our health necessarily. You know, we'll go to the gym together. We may go and do some stuff together, but we're not going to start talking about our issues necessarily straight up.
But you will talk about how many kilos you lifted or pressed on the bar or how far you cycled, or, you know, those are healthy things you will discuss, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you know, we have a big competition instinct, so we've got to talk about the size of the fish we catch and all the rest of it. That is something we do tend to do.
When I was, you know, as a woman, I was just trying to find out what are men's interests in health. And every time I see a men's health magazine, it's all about muscle building, you know, from fat to abs. And it's all about strength and that six-pack and not the one you drink.
Exactly.
But I never see anything about dieting.
Yeah.
And you cannot open a women's magazine without it being about a diet of some form.
Well,
Why is that, do you think?
Well, you're right. You look at any men's health mag, the first thing you're going to look at is how do you get the six-pack? Well, it's the 8-pack now. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
There's a new 8-pack. You know, how can you try and get the 8-pack, build muscle quickly? In fact, it's more about putting bulk on. We tend to talk an awful lot about that. Whereas in women, it's how can you look slimmer? And they have the pictures of the lady who used to look like this and now she looks like that. But for us, it's all about, it's the masculine macho type. It's putting muscle on. How do you do it? That seems to be the extent or the main focus of men's health. But actually, even now, you look at some of the magazines, they are starting to talk about, well, what sort of diet must you have to get that sort of physique? That's the aim of the diet.
Is it? I was just wondering, because I remember seeing posters that say real men eat vegetables too.
Yeah.
You know, we're always interested in the protein, and we've got to. Is that what you're seeing? That we're tending to become a little bit more balanced in our diets?
In fact, it's interesting. There's one magazine I used to read an awful lot myself 10 years ago, and I remember an article. It would say, in order to be healthy, it's a meat and potatoes diet. Meat and potatoes. That same magazine now is recommending a vegetarian diet. So things have changed even in the journalism world. They're waking up to that.
But I also would say that you talk about the superficial,
Yes.
about the image orientated. And I don't think that any woman would be upset to have a man who has a nice six-pack, who is fit.
Exactly.
Just as well as I don't think a man would be upset to have a wife that is nice and good looking.
Sure.
And, you know, it seems that health becomes targeted at that superficial level, being it male and female, even though it does kind of live out in difference, like muscles or slimness.
Yes.
But what is it that, you know, how do you move on from that and move it to a deeper level? Because you can be looking very fit and filling yourself with all kinds of different steroids or
Yeah.
whatever, and you can be really, really slim and actually not eat anything and be exceedingly unhealthy with your heart and
Yeah.
all kinds of things. How do you balance the external looking
Yeah.
with the internal working of the body?
It's a very good question. That there is a phrase for certain people who look quite slim but are not that healthy. They're called TOFIs, TOFIs, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. You know, so you look thin, but inside all your organs are covered with fat because your diet is pretty lousy. Now, what we would say is it's better to start from the inside. Okay, so if you focus your attention on being healthy inside out, that's much better. What do I mean by inside out? Well, start thinking about, well, how can I keep my blood pressure down? How can I prevent myself from getting diabetes? Focus on the sort of foods and the regime that's going to do that. You will actually end up looking better in the long run anyway. If you just focus on how you look, well, you could still die in your early 40s, 30s of a heart attack if you're just focusing on how you look. And many of the diets that are recommended to us actually are detrimental to your health. Some of those diets that make men look so masculine are very dangerous for your health.
So you mean that 9 o'clock kebab in the evening or that driving through,
Yeah,
you know?
because they recommend also so much protein. You know, you'll see all these young guys drinking protein shakes because I've got to build up the muscle. Well, those protein shakes are full of animal protein, and they end up killing your kidneys. So a lot of these people, what they don't see is all these muscle builders. You look at them a few years down the line, they've got kidney failure, they have heart disease, they end up having diabetes, and it's because the balance isn't right. So what I say is look at the inside first, just like what your question was suggesting. Look at the inside first. How do I stay healthy? You end up looking better in the end.
So Chidi, you were just touching on some of the more serious illnesses. You know, are there specific illnesses that men are more prone to, or that men need to perhaps think a little bit more about?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can look good
Yeah,
and still be ill.
absolutely, absolutely.
So you can't just determine by somebody walking down the street.
No.
But what are some of the signs, you know? And I have a lot of women. I asked a lot of women around, what should I ask about men's health? What do you want to know? And they're like, how do I know when I need to drag my husband to the GP?
Okay.
Because he is resisting all the way.
Very good question. A general rule of thumb for me is if you have any symptom, whether it's a headache, a nosebleed, or you're bleeding down below, or you're finding it pain anywhere, if you have anything like that that lasts more than 10 days, you shouldn't ignore it. You should see your doctor. So even if you have something like a cough that lasts for 10 days or more, you need to see your doctor. Most easy things tend to resolve themselves within about 7 to 10 days. If it's just a virus, it will resolve itself. If you're still coughing, you're choking, after 10 days it could be a proper infection. Any other sign, get it checked out. Now, the problem is for guys, they don't want to go and see the doctor. They don't want to come and see someone like me because I may tell them something that they don't want to hear. And I always think that's a bit like having a car and saying, well, you know, you've got a warning light on. I don't want to take it to the garage because, you know, they might tell me something I don't want to hear. Better for me to tell you early. It'd be a lot cheaper. I used to have my first car, Peugeot 105 GTI. Beautiful car, beautiful car. But I got it on the cheap and it had a mucked up engine. And it used to have all these warning signs going off. I said, no, I'm leaving it. One day, driving down Regent Street, that engine just blew up. Embarrassing, expensive. If you can address the issues early, it's a lot less expensive. Yeah. So that's the advice for everybody.
But doctor, I don't want to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we just seen a research coming out on the BBC here recently that showed that 1/3 of Britons are actually scared of going to the doctor.
Yeah.
For the only reason they don't want to waste the GP's time.
Yeah, that's very
so
kind.
as a nation, we are scared of going to the doctor, much so than our European neighbours. And if you're telling me that men are even more hesitant to go, then what chance do we have of getting men healthy?
It's a good point. There are different types of patients. There are some patients who will go to the doctor at a drop of a hat. We don't need to see those people. The people who we really need to see are those who just do not want to go. They don't want to trouble us. They don't want to make any hassle. I would say just treat it like an MOT even. You know, once a year, get yourself checked out. Whether you're feeling well or not, just treat it like that. You take your car in all the time for an MOT, just for a certificate of fitness. Do that for yourself. Check your blood pressure, check your blood glucose. Let's get someone to listen to your heart. It's just a maintenance. Think about it as a maintenance. Men can relate to that.
Yeah, that's true. Although I had an experience where I did go for one of these MOTs
Yep.
At a certain health institute, and then came to my GP with the results, and he said, "Oh, it's just a waste of time. You shouldn't bother with that." So that didn't really help.
You can always
actually.
change your GP.
But I hear you, and I kind of like the analogy because we do that with our cars.
Exactly,
Definitely,
yeah.
if you want the thing to run properly, you got to make sure
Yeah.
it gets proper service, etc. So that's not bad.
So what do you think, when you look at some of the big health scares for men,
Yeah,
we know some of the ones for women.
Sure.
We're not talking about that today.
sure.
What are some of the big things that men tend to ignore,
Yep.
but also some of the things that men need to be aware of? You're talking about the pain for 10 days, but you also know that most people won't go with a cough for 10 days.
Yeah.
And you can also be scaremongering of what's going on. We have the internet available. You can do your own diagnosis on the internet, kind of.
That's dangerous. Yeah.
So I shouldn't do that on the internet? Is that what you're saying?
I think the internet is a wonderful tool, but you need to go to some reputable sites. World Health Organization, Choices on the NHS. Those are great sites to go to get some information. But you can. I have people come to me in the surgery with reams of paper that they printed off from the internet. Doctor, this is what I think I've got. It doesn't even exist anymore. This illness has been extinct for so long. So just be careful. But if you're asking me, what are some of the main problems that men should look out for? Well, the big ones are heart disease. And a lot of these things are silent, but they do have certain symptoms to them. If you're constantly getting headaches, getting those kind of pressure headaches, especially when you bend down, you feel it even worse. You're getting palpitations in your chest. Those sort of things we need to check out, because it could be that you're building up a lot of heart disease, which may shoot your blood pressure up, lead to heart attacks, strokes, whatever. And one other thing that's specific for men is obviously prostate problems. If you're having difficulty in passing water, or you have any blood in it, or it's painful to pass water, those sort of symptoms, you need to see your doctor. If at any time you see blood in your urine, especially if it's painless, you must see your doctor immediately. Those are not things that need to be that you should wait around for. You need to go and see your doctor urgently.
And I've been seeing actually they have been advertising this on the TV lately.
Yes.
A guy with a sledgehammer and a walnut, I think it is.
Right.
Saying we need to crack cancer.
Oh, right, yeah, good.
Because he was talking about this kind of cancer.
Yeah.
And we got to hit it on the head, and using a sledgehammer to do that. So
You're also then suggesting perhaps that the way that the health campaigns are targeting, are informing the general population about various men's health issues, needs to be maybe a little bit more aggressive to catch attention?
Possibly, I thought it was very well done because he had the walnut and said this is about the size of your prostate, and then he talks about one of the biggest killers for men being cancer, and it was quite it grabbed my attention, let's put it that way. So I think that's pretty worthwhile. Yeah.
So I noticed, Chidi, that you didn't mention the man flu as one of the big things you should be looking out for. we got to talk about the man flu because,
Yes.
seriously,
Man flu, does it exist?
Really?
Does it exist?
Of course it does.
nah, I don't believe it does
Right.
exist. I think men are just wuss, you know.
What, you know what? You're both right in a way. You're both right. I'm being the diplomat here. You're both right. Recent evidence shows that men have an awful lot of pain receptors in their brain. So when you have something like the flu, men have more pain receptors. So if we have the same flu, you and I'm going to feel it an awful lot worse than you. Now maybe that's
That's
part.
scientific now.
Yeah, maybe that's part of our makeup. You know, women have children; they go through an awful lot of pain. You know, if they had so many receptors, it would be unbearable life. So we have a lot more pain receptors. So man flu does actually exist. We do suffer more in flu than women.
Well, we heard it here that men suffer more than women. But are you also suggesting, I have to kind of push you on this one, that men are more sensitive than women?
In many ways, yes. Yes. And let me explain that. Just by the fact that we have more nerves, more pain receptors, means that we are more sensitive. And you know what? Women are, you know, I have to say they are more hardy than us guys. And they're able to take things a lot better than guys. That is one of the reasons why men don't want to come to see doctors. They don't want the bad news. A woman can take the bad news, but actually, and they move on with their life. The man just wants to avoid it at all costs. So yeah, men are a little bit more sensitive, I'm afraid.
How does that feel to hear that, Patrick?
Oh, that's not
Did you
good.
know that?
I'm not telling my wife that, but
But I think, you know, we talked a little bit about a variety of illnesses and all of that,
Yeah.
and talked about muscle building, dieting.
Yeah.
You mentioned that food is something that can work on a preventative scale as well.
Yes.
You talked about muscle building.
Sure.
But can we actually, and can men do something among themselves to prevent some of these health issues that might crop up later?
Exactly right. You can prevent it and you can also reverse it, which is a fascinating thing. It's the simple things in life. It's how much fat are you taking into your body, especially animal fat and protein. Many men want to eat lots of protein, be it steak or whatever. That is detrimental to your health.
But I did read some research some time ago
Yeah.
that there are men's food and women's food, and men need to have more protein. They do need to eat their red meat for the testosterone level to be appropriately.
Right.
And women are just craving more salad and softer and more vegetarian diet. So I read some research on that. How does that resonate with you?
Well, the women's diet you just described is the ideal diet for us all. What I tend to say to people is, well, you know, if you're looking for a macho diet, you want to be macho, well, how much more macho can you get than a gorilla? Okay, I wouldn't want to come up with a gorilla at any time in my life. They're full of muscle. Now, how do they achieve that? They achieve that not by eating loads of meat and steak. They do it by eating loads of beans and grains and fruits. Their genetic makeup is pretty much the same as ours. Their digestion is the same as ours. So if they can do it like that, we can do it like that. And we know that loads of red meat increases your risk of things like bowel cancer. We know that if you have more than 2 portions of red meat a week, your risk of bowel cancer goes up 60%. So someone says to me, so I should just have 1 portion of red meat. Well, what's the point of taking something that you know is going to be toxic for you? Yeah, so a low-fat, low-protein diet, low sugar, and actually low salt. It sounds quite drab by the way I'm describing it. It's not actually that bad. But that is the diet that we're designed for. And that will help to prevent things like heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. And in fact, if you have any of those illnesses, it will reverse it too. And the latest evidence shows us that if you have an early diagnosis of prostate cancer and you change to that sort of diet, you can actually reverse it. I mean, that is quite miraculous.
But are you saying that food is the only way I can change or I can prevent illnesses? Is that the only link to... Are there any other areas of my health I can think about that contribute to...
No, actually, I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, there's food, absolutely. There's exercise. There is stress management. Those 3 things are really the keys. And if you're asking me for a proportion, I would say if it's between food and if it's diet and exercise, 80% is food, but 20% is definitely exercise. But you can eat the finest food, you can do all the exercise you want, but if you're stressed out of your head, you can still become unwell. You still get cancer, you still get heart disease. So it's how do we cope with the stresses of life? How do we do that? That is a key.
So balance basically is the whole key to health.
Oh, exactly. Balance.
You know, we're talking here on a Christian program, we're talking here on a faith program about health.
Yes.
Now, why would we bother to, why do you think that health is important also for your faith? And is it important for other than your physiological well-being? I mean, does health have an impact on other aspects of your life? What do you think, Patrick?
Well, there are certain parts of the Bible that tell us that our bodies are temples of God. They're God's temple. And so we should look after our bodies well. If I think that my body is a temple for God's Spirit to live in, then I should be looking after that as well as I can. I think if we are in good physical health, that helps us to be mentally more aware of spiritual aspects of our lives. If you think about just Jesus, he would often be healing and helping people with the physical, get that in place before being able to speak to them.
Yes.
So I think it's a very important ingredient in our
Yes.
lives.
And I always like, what Lincoln said. Lincoln said, it's not just about the years in your life, it's about the life in your years. Health is about giving your body the optimum, the absolute optimum environment in which you can go through your life. It's a lot happier, it's a lot more pleasurable to go through life healthy. Being able to walk, being able to talk, being able to do everything you want to do, keeping yourself mentally and physically fit. So health is related then to our spirituality. Because if you are unhealthy, it's difficult to have any kind of relationship, let alone your relationship with God.
At the same time, a lot of people say that those who are struggling with health issues and illnesses, that actually brings them closer to God.
Yeah.
Pastor?
Yeah, whether I would say that it brings you closer to God or you're able to at least find God in the difficulties, okay, that can be a matter of debate. I wouldn't say aim for bad health so that you can get close to God, because I don't think that's the way it works. But there's no doubt about it. If you don't have to be thinking about the pain in your back or any other illnesses that you have, you're able to, I feel, communicate with God a lot easier about stuff. Plus, I think part of the journey with God is to help us to focus away from ourselves. And if bad health makes you focus on yourself, that can help you to perhaps be focusing on someone else.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing. Being in good health helps you to be of service. It's easier to be of service when your body is healthy and your mind is healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not, you're right, it's not just about us, it's about the service that we have to do. Yeah. And you want a nice running motor to do the job, not one that you always have to be fixing and mending.
Yeah.
So how do we get that nice motor running?
Yeah, I think, we've talked a little bit about diet, which is wonderful, but the one thing that we do tend to forget about is the stress management. How do you deal with the stresses and problems of life? Well, that has to be spending a bit of time with God, letting God take control. And if God does take control, he looks after not just your mind and your spirit, but also your body. A lot of the things we've just talked about are things that have been written in the book of Genesis. That's what they were eating, the fruit, the vegetables. If we get close to God, he will take us on a path that leads to health, without question.
And I think, to just add to that, God created us with a kind of rhythm of rest and work.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things that comes in when you get to know God, that he brings rest to your life, and that is a very, very strong health principle, knowing how and when to rest. I think that helps us generally in life altogether.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Chidi, for coming in today, and to you as well, Patrick, for joining us, as we've just been discussing some interesting aspects of men and health. And I've definitely learned a thing or two about the man flu, if not anything else, and that I should have more sympathy with my husband next time he's ill. But thank you for raising some of those very key health important things in men's life. And thank you to you for joining us here on Faith Talks. Why don't you join us in the conversation either on Facebook or send us an email. It's been my privilege to be with you here today. Thank you for watching and stay healthy.